All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get into this Luke chapter 2, part 2 breakdown. Part of Jesus' God honoring upbringing is participation in required feasts. Deuteronomy 16:16. What happens during the Passover festival is often taken drastically out of context. Jesus is nearly the age of adulthood in his culture, making trips his family performed yearly among a large group of relatives and neighbors. It is awkward that Mary and Joseph did not realize Jesus did not leave the city with the group until the end of the day, but not negligent. A day's journey out and a day to return, and then finding him is summarized as after 3 days. Jesus is discovered in the temple, amazing people with his depth of wisdom. Luke 12:2:41 through 47. Can you imagine not knowing where your baby is for 3 days? And then he goes and say, I'm doing the work of my father. Oh, I would have been hot. Hot. Okay, so Mary is unhappy about how these events have happened. She seems to think that Jesus has mistreated her and Joseph, Jesus' adoptive and legal father. Jesus' answer, however, implies that the temple is exactly where she should have expected him to be. He also refers to it as his father's house. This implies self-awareness about his divinity and status as the Son of God. Mary does not fully understand these series of events at first. I would have been hot, okay? Angry. Luke 2:48 through 50. Because, boy, why are you not here with us? Okay, so though she does not see the full picture yet, Mary continues to trust God as she should, as we should. She makes a deliberate effort once again to keep all her things in memory. Luke's comment here doesn't suggest that Jesus only now began to submit to his earthly parents. Rather, this clarifies that Jesus continues to act in submission. Come on, Jesus. He did not use this moment as an excuse to ignore their authority. This difference from God incarnate to his earthly family clarifies that a call to submission is not a sign of inferiority. Luke 2:51. Luke also reminds the readers once again that Jesus' humanity was entirely complete. He grew physically and mentally, and as he aged into adulthood, other than a lack of sin, Hebrews 4:15, 1 Peter 2:22, he was entirely human. Luke 2:52. Next, Luke's account will leap forward around 18 years to the public ministry of John the Baptist. This lack of detail about Jesus' earthly life is both efficient and kind. It keeps scriptures from being packed with irrelevant details. John 21:25. It also prevents well-meaning parents from constantly comparing their child's growth milestones to those of the Messiah. That's good. Okay, let's get into the second part of the breakdown. The breakdown part 2, as I say. So Luke chapter 2 narrates the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem under Caesar Augustus' decree, his presentation to the temple, the shepherds' angelic announcement of his birth, and Simeon and Anna's prophetic recognition to the infant Jesus Christ as the salvation of both Israel and the Gentiles. The chapter emphasizes the divine orchestration of these historical events, the humble circumstances of Jesus' birth, and his significance to the promised Savior, Messiah, and Lord. Okay, so key events and themes. Number 1, the census and humble birth, Luke 2:1 through 7. A decree from Caesar Augustus for a worldwide census forced Joseph and Mary to travel from Nazareth to Bethlehem because there was no room in the inn. Jesus was born in a manger, highlighting God's choice to bring salvation to the world in humble circumstances. Okay, the shepherds' angelic announcement, Luke 2:8 through 20. Angels appeared to the shepherds announcing the birth of the Savior, Christ the Lord, in Bethlehem. The shepherds' joyful response in their spreading the good news of Jesus' birth demonstrates the fulfillment of God's plan to reveal himself to all people, not just the powerful. Jesus' presentation at the temple, in the temple, Luke 2:21-39. Following Jewish custom, Jesus was circumcised and named. In the temple, the devout Simeon prophesied about Jesus as the light to reveal the Gentiles and the glory of your people, Israel. The prophetess Anna also recognized Jesus as the one who would bring redemption. Jesus' early life and growth. Luke 2:40-52. The chapter concludes with a brief account of Jesus growing in wisdom and stature, maturing in his relationship with God and people. Overall meaning. Fulfillment of prophecy. Luke 2 demonstrates God's faithfulness to his promise by showing the birth and the early life of the Messiah foretold in the Old Testament. The next one is the nature of God's kingdom. The birth of Jesus in the manger shows that God's power is not based on worldly might, but on humble service and salvation. Salvation for all people. The chapter emphasizes that Jesus, the Savior, was not just for Israel, but for all humanity, providing a revelation of God's truth to the Gentiles as well as the glory of Israel. And then the last one is a model for believers. Like the shepherds and Anna, believers are called to respond to the news of Jesus' birth with faith and to treasure those divine events in their hearts. All right, y'all, that is all I have for the breakdown of Luke chapter 2, part 2, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.